Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Kevin Anderson and Adam Okada, and this is actually part two of a two-part series with Mr. Steve Kovach, or maybe you know him as Stephen Kovach, or even better, the CPD guy. He is wrapping up his illustrious career and has agreed to do this short series with us to kind of do a final couple podcasts with him. And I'm so excited about it. In the first one, if you haven't heard that one yet, we kind of got into Steve's background a little bit. And in this one, we were kind of transitioning to his career starting with Healthmark. So I wanted to pick it up there, Steve. Uh, Tell us about how you got started with Healthmark and what was it like in those early days?
Mm,
How big was the company? Kind of what was your
sure.
role? I'm sure, the company was much smaller, so your role was probably all over the place. So I'm curious to learn more about that.
Well, some of the things I'm just going to ask, you're going to have to let go. And if you ask, let go, meaning you might say, could you explain more? And I'll say, I just want to keep that personal. And I think you'll
Sure.
understand. So I had just come back in 1999, Mary Ellen Fortenberry, Ann Cofield, myself. Um, we spoke at the first World Federation. It wasn't called that. And it was amazing. And that's where I met Martin Pfeiffer, Klaus Ross, a lot of other people that have become my friends to this day. I had already known Michelle Alpha had talked. I was working at a hospital and I had already known Michelle earlier from the early 90s with EO and some other things. And that's why I first learned about the TOSI. And that sort of set in motion me ending up at Healthmark, but I didn't know that's where it would end up. So I had left Henry Ford Hospital and I was at another facility. And at that time, I was reporting to nursing. And because I had a bachelor's degree, I was considered a nurse manager. So I was in the nurse manager, like the floor manager or the OR manager's pay scale, which for a sterile processing manager at that time was pretty good. Um, and they were going through a reorg. And I was going to report to materials management and I was going to be what's called red line. For those of you who know what it is, it means basically you're going to a new department or a new title and you're making more money than what the other people are, or what the title is. And this is going to be your wage, and it might be that for 2, 3, 4 years. Don't expect a raise. Well, that ain't going to work with Steve Kovach. um, in that sense, that you want me to work as hard and do things. I am a good guy in many ways, but that got me thinking. But then my wife Ann's disease started to progress a little differently, and had a 3-year-old, 4-year-old son, and another one, in sixth, seventh grade, and whatever. And we made some personal decisions. Well, Ralph and Steve were both calling on me. Their dad had sort of stopped calling, only on some local accounts, and I'm local, and they both picked up the beginning of 2000 that I was unhappy. One thing led to another. In August of that year, Steve came and asked me if I wanted to come work at Healthmark, and made a personal handshake. and he knew what I wanted to do, and it worked out. Um, and so I started in August of 2000. And at that time, I think there were 16 employees. Let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, not counting all the independent reps. I think it was 16 total in the office. And Ralph and Steve and Mark always says they really got me away because I didn't buy many of their products, which was fairly true. I bought some, but I didn't buy a lot. But
So it was a business decision for them to
it was.
get you out of that seat.
And I want to say this. I was very blessed that before this, I was part of both Kimberly Clark and 3M's Summit focus panels. And this is where they treated you like kings, man. We went to the best places. Coronado Hotel in San Diego, Banff, the Ritz in Washington, D.C., Puerto Vallarta, a cruise, a Bahama cruise, whatever. But I learned a lot from them, and I became one of their speakers, and I did consulting. So I already was gaining a name for myself, but I was local. And the brothers had a vision of where they wanted to take the company and grow. And I was a local person, and, things worked out. But this is what a lot of people, you've got to be willing to take a chance. You got to believe in yourself. You have to have somebody to believe in you. They believed in me, and they saw some things that I didn't even know I had. And I needed a different lifestyle. I didn't need a pure 9 to 5 or go in a department. I needed flexibility, and they were willing to work with me, and I was willing to work with them. Now, I
So,
used to get,
Steve,
oh, go ahead.
just hold, if you don't mind holding that thought for a second, just for the people who are listening, can you explain who the brothers are and how,
Sure.
yeah, just
There's
real quick.
three
Yep.
in the order of age is how you do it. Ralph, Mark, and Steve. Doesn't mean who's more important, but they each had a different area. Steve was sales, Ralph was marketing, and Mark was the supply chain, now what you call it, acquisitions, things of that, the warehouse, vendor relationships. You know, Ralph had the accounting with his mother, and different things were divided up. Uh, but they had more than Healthmark. They had their own rep company. So I actually, for them to pay me, I had 2 jobs. I got 2 paychecks.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
I worked Healthmark in the morning or afternoon, and the other part of the time I worked for they represented Puritan Bennett. I sold spirometers, I sold scales, sold action pads, I sold drugs, microscopes.
Not illicit drugs, right? Yeah,
No, I
pharmaceuticals.
had to call in a
Yeah.
pharmacy. I had to call in pharmacy. Um, it was Basile Incorporated. I forget all the God we had lots of products. So I was selling that, selling Healthmark, and I'd go into the doctor's office and teach them how to use a spirometer, blow, and this is what da 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 da, and then they buy the unit, and then they buy the mouthpieces. And I will tell you that opened my eyes up that you would not believe, how do I say this? The medical practices that would reuse a $2 spirometer mouthpiece over and over again on patients to save money. They're supposed to buy a new one every time. You teach them, you do the open up, and then they do it. And then you go in because there's something, some would have lipstick on. They didn't even wipe them off. I
Oh
mean,
my
I could,
goodness.
oh my God. I think we are missing, there are great doctors, trust me. And there's a small percentage of them were doing this, probably still doing it today. But man, when
Yeah.
I go in, I'm looking at everything when I go in the doctor's office. Um, so that really opened it up, and we had to work with distributors like Owens and Minor and Cardinal, because they had people who just called on the doctor's office. So you had to work with those reps, and they had to try to push our brushes. You had to do the. It was I learned the business side really really good by being for Basile Incorporated. Then as the company grew, they sold that business to one of their reps. But when I first started with them, they were all independent reps, and I thought I traveled. Steve Basile was gone. It got to be 40 weeks out of the year. And remember Flat Stanley? I forget. I think it was Ashland gave it to him. When we would travel together, he'd bring out Flat Stanley out of his suitcase and take a picture. And I mean, he visited every sales rep in the US. He made sure he spent a couple days, he traveled. And so he was gone a lot. I mean, those guys, Ralph too. I mean, we were calling on Michigan, Ohio. I mean, we had territories to cover. Mark, I think, had Cincinnati and Kentucky at one time. I mean, they've done it all parts of the business. And up until probably the last couple years, till be just before COVID, Steve and Ralph still kept a couple counts in Michigan, and Mark did the international stuff, but they were still calling on accounts, and that's why I think they were always in touch. They were talking to customers. They were going into departments. They were seeing things, and I always respected that with them. So, anyways, and then the company kept growing, and they got the Tosi business, and they had a plan, and we executed that plan. And I am a product of what they wanted. They had faith in me, and um, they gave me direction, and we learned, and we went from there. Um, is that sort of what you wanted to hear at the sort of the beginning?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And honestly, so you started in 2000, right, with
Yep.
Healthmark, and now we're about to hit 2025 when we're
Mm-hmm.
recording this. So
Mm-hmm.
in the last 25 years, how have you seen Healthmark change and grow
Oh,
in that time? Because 16 employees, it's pretty small to what it is today. I mean,
uh,
I've been to that warehouse.
well, okay. Let me put it this way. We've all worked at hospitals, and even as a manager, my level really never got a bonus. I was never up in that high level where people really get bonuses. Um, the first Christmas party, we went to Shores Inn. They bought the drinks, the food, and got an envelope with $100 in it. I was like
Wow.
happy as a pig in mud. I mean, I was not expecting. I mean, we went, we drank. I mean, we drank, we ate. Oh, we had. I mean, it was. And then the last real big party they did, and none of you guys were part of it. It was at the yacht club. It was a casino. People won all this kind of stuff. TV. I mean, it went from that to them sharing um, very nice bonuses for people. I think they don't. They've never had to. It's their company, but they've always given back. But that $100, you guys know this. We travel, and we get our own room, Hampton Inn, whatever if we can stay at a nicer place, sometimes that happens. And, but I remember first starting off, I had to sleep with somebody in a room, Red Roofs in. I mean, some of these people got it so good, and I hear little people, they don't complain, but you know, hey, we are treated very nice. We're not asked to overdo anything. They've always trusted their employees to do what's right and to live within to speak and represent the company. And that's really what I have really enjoyed. I've always told people this. They never asked me to lie, cheat, steal, kill anybody, or say something I didn't believe. And that last one's very important to me. We might disagree, and I can find a way to be comfortable either not saying something or saying something within what I believe. But they never said, well, you better say it this way, or you better do this, or, that's, it was always what's best for the patient, what's best for the customer. And what made it nice for me, and then some of the others that have come along, I could say, you know what? These other companies have brushes. You can check with them, or we have the solution. There are other companies with solution. And then they say, who are they? Then I'll tell them. But I will at least say, there's others who have, cleaning or, whatever it is, pouches or whatever. And I says, you can check them out. Well, who are they? Well, they're this and that. But I believe ours is better. So then they open it up for me to talk about the differences. I didn't bring it up. They wanted to know. So that's what I really, really like. I think one of the turning points, and I don't have the exact date, but maybe it's around 08 or 09. I do have the clipping when Kimberly-Clark sold their pouch business and Healthmark and WePack went in and bought it. And that changed. That was this really big acquisition for them. I think it was like $7 or $10 million. I don't know. And they held almost 90% of the customers as they switched them over from the Kimberly-Clark pouch to the WePack pouch. I think Ray Taurasi was with us then, and how they worked that. And the brothers had a plan. They worked with WePack. We executed the plan. They always had a good plan. I have to say, when we did big things like that, there was always, but that's sort of like, boom, all of a sudden, now you got this big boost in your total, what you're buying. And in 2000, I don't think it matters. I don't know. They were maybe $1.5 million company. And then you look at what they sold in 2023. I'll let anybody look at that and say, look at the growth of that company and what they've done. And it's really amazing as a family business. I knew Mr. Basile, still Mrs. Basile, love her, great lady. I mean, if I had something on the expense account, well, that's in the wrong accounts. I mean, she knew where everything was, but she was always nice. And I see her and we talk, and I miss her walking around, but COVID came, so everything sort of changed after that. But it was always nice to see Mrs. Basile there. Um, you know, whatever. So I
So
sort of rambled there. Go wherever you want with it.
no,
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay. So you're saying back in 2000 it was roughly a $1 million company,
A
and then
little more than a million.
yeah, a little more than a million, and then 16 employees, not including 1099 sales
Right.
reps,
They had about
and then
45, I think. They had over 40.
right, and then now we're I don't know, close
Over
to
300?
400
You have close to
employees.
400 now. Yeah.
So, and then what they sold the company for was somewhere in the 300 million-ish
Mm-hmm.
range or whatever. So yeah, tremendous growth. You mentioned one of those key drivers being uh, the partnership or acquisition of the peel pouches. That is huge, of course. And you started to talk about, I think, Martin Pfeiffer, right? And so,
Love the guy.
who is this guy, and what is the partnership there, and how did that impact Healthmark's growth?
Again, I'm giving it from my point of view, and
Sure,
maybe the brothers or other people, you can only, what's that movie? They have all the different people from their different points of view see the same thing in the view.
sure, yeah.
I'm giving it from um, I myself and Marion Fortenberry, I mean, to hear him speak, we said to each other, that's Tosi, that's it, baby. That's what we need. I was having problems. I bought the first toast. So I'm going to get to that, but I want to tell you this. When I finally said I was going to retire, I had a flood, a few years ago, and some of my boxes were in cardboard boxes. And so I'm known as being a frickin' pack rat. Um, and one of my boxes had the original letter from Martin Pfeiffer in 1999, where he wrote me and he sent me my first box of Tosis. And I was going to be the first one to actually start using it in the US. So I still believe I was the first customer. I got a free box, so I really didn't buy it. So maybe somebody could have bought it. But the letter got ruined. I did find some of my research, and I was going to write an article for them. And then I left and went to Healthmark, and I never did it. And I found some of my old pictures, but the letter got ruined and thrown out, I'm assuming. So I emailed Martin, and he went back and he couldn't find it in his old files. That I have like 3 or 4 letters personally that had meant a lot to me. And I'm going off the topic, but one of them is from 1993 when I was president of the Michigan Society, and I was working with Isham and Ann Cofield. And I was a president, but the Michigan Society was not part of Isham. We were part of the American Society. And Ann and I had already been friends for a long time. And they were talking about flash sterilization, and they wanted to change and do some things with the document. So this is where I think we've lost this with the chapters. She asked me to get my chapter, the board to vote to support what Isham was saying. And, at that time we had 170 members or something, and wrote this letter. And I still have the letter back from Joe Llewellyn from 1993. And that's when I first started with Amy, and I've been active with them since that time, but really got active with Healthmark. But that letter from Joe saying thank you as a chapter and representing the profession was very important to helping us pass. We need to hear from users, blah, 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 blah. I kept that letter, and that one didn't get ruined. And then I lost Martin's letter. And then the third letter, I've told you about it. I wanted to patent a couple ideas, and I sent them to the office, and I had to send $25 and more money, and I never did it. And a couple of them have taken place, but anyways, I still have those letters to show that I did come up with the idea, but it doesn't matter now. But it's about being involved. I don't know what that had to do with it. I'm just rambling there. But that
No,
letter got
it's
me
all
to thinking of 3 letters that I have held important. The fourth one is that I was part of Nancy Chobin's first national registry, the first group being certified. I have that. and a couple others. My wife says, "What are you going to do with them?" Says, "When you die, the kids will just throw them away." I says, "Well, I'll PDF them and put them on I don't know what I'm going to do with them." But now, whatever. There you go.
I
What
think
we were talking about. Sorry there, Adam and
no,
Kevin.
it's perfect. And as you're bringing up these names, I do want to ask a little bit more about some of these people that you worked with. So first off, Ray Taurasi, talk a little bit about how you met Ray, what you
Oh,
guys did together, because you guys were, and I'm not spoiling anything. I'll let you tell the story, but formed like a duo that was in the industry, the very well known in the industry. So talk a little bit about Ray Taurasi.
the 10th anniversary is coming up, and look where it's being held.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, there it
perfect.
is.
Look at
There's our
that.
first poster. Oh, we were,
Hmm.
and so Ray, I tell people this: you need many mentors. I have many mentors for different things in my life. I was a big ethylene oxide user, and there was a guy called Dickie Newsbaum who did Penn Gas, and Ray was at Beth Israel, and I had some issues, and this is like 80, oh shoot, maybe 85, 86. And I got his name. I actually went out to visit him later at where he worked. And so I got to talk to him. And that's also right after that, I got to meet Michelle Alpha and talk to her. She did a great study in 93, but that's where I got this relationship with her. But um, I had started talking to Ray, and I honestly, in the old days, you just picked up I honestly called him probably once a month about an issue in my department. I had no idea what the heck I was doing, and we became friends. So it's 1992. I hadn't gone out to visit him yet. So this is probably 7 years, somewhere in there. And we're at a 3M. No, we're at the Kimberly Clark Summit. And they're had just come out with the transport tray, and they're finalizing one step to be part of that. I was on the tail end of it. And we're out in Sedona, Arizona. Imagine that. Oh, man. Excuse me. And I'm a new panelist, and they're introducing all the people there, and they say, Ray Taurasi. I go, Ray Taurasi. I stand up. These people have no idea who the hell I am. There's Betty Strickland. There's Bruce Bird. There's Lindell Durrell. Kathy Shaughnessy, who's passed away of cancer, who was another mentor of mine. Oh my God, she was unbelievable. I have a sore throat. Excuse me. And I jump up out of my chair and I'm going, Ray Taurasi, is this? I can't believe this is. I'm finally meeting you. And this guy in there going, who the hell is this guy? I come over and I shake his hand. Man, Ray, I just can't believe. I mean, it was sincere. It was honest. He's going, oh my God. And his friends are, who the heck? I mean, where did they get this guy from? Well, there was Cynthia Torta, who was at that time at Johns Hopkins. Um, all these other people. I was at Henry Ford Hospital, and we were either number one or number two in using Kimberly Clark wrap. So they wanted to bring their biggest users and all this to get feedback. And I remember him, and he has just helped me. And then personally, through when my wife was sick, and him and Martha Young actually came out to my wife's funeral. But Ray has been there 40, 85, 80, somewhere around there, close to 20, 40, a long time, long time. And he's been honest with me. He says, I don't think he's been nice. He says, you need to look at this. And he was active in Amy in the 80s and 90s, going back. And yeah, Ray, wow.
So how did he become a clean brother with you? Was he with Healthmark at the
Yes,
time or
yeah,
not with
yeah.
Healthmark?
I got him. Oh yeah, we he was one of the FOKs at
Uh-oh.
Healthmark. It was called Friends of Kovach.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
There
at
we
one
go.
time I had like 16 or 18 people there, working for Healthmark, got them jobs or whatever. Um, we had Healthmark wanted to throw their first party. And this is what I loved about Ralph, Steve, and Mark. They would let they had to think I was freaking nuts. I mean, Ralph Ralph and I started the Daily Digest before other people were doing it daily, then it became weekly. They let me start the concept of the games with a great young friend of mine, Alex Kirk, when nobody else was doing these types of games. And they says, "Well, what are we going to do?" I says, "I love the Blues Brothers anyways. I used to do a Blues Brother back in college with a friend of mine." I says, "We can be the Clean Brothers, baby." And they said, "Oh yeah." So Tim Couch was with us. Don Gordon was our security guard going through, and we did a really cool act for like 15 or 20 minutes. And it people just they had never, nothing against all the other parties other than Chuck Hughes when people used to dress up. But you used to go to a luncheon and you have this. This was just drinking and hors d'oeuvres, and then two wild guys just dancing and jumping around. And we took it on the road, did it at some local state chapters. And then for the next 4 or 5 years, we were the Clean Brothers at a safari. I had to dress up as a penguin. No, he was a penguin. He was a snowman. Then we were like the three amigos. Don Gordon was with us. Um, the Clean Brothers did acts. It was just a way to promote and have a good time. And the parties have always been as a thank you to the people who work every day. And that was the whole thing. The Basile says, we just want to say thank you and let people get a little break. Not everybody has a vendor take them out to dinner and buy them some drinks, and a lot of technicians don't. And that was their goal. Let's just have people have a good time and forget things. And um, yeah, we had a damn good time. So we took the Clean Brothers and they let us run with it, you know. And my wife I still have my suit hanging up in the closet. And my wife says, "When you gonna get rid of it?" I says, "Well, I'm retiring, and then that's it." And I even got my three amigos whatever, uh, whatever. Then we did the 1 year with the princesses and all the Disney characters. Oh, the really cool one is the first time in San Diego, the San Diego Zoo. I think they brought snakes. They had a cheetah. It was wild, man. And they're walking around with that. And we're dressed up as Clean Brothers in the Jungle. Oh, it was, anyways, it was a different time. Anyways,
I
there
knew
you
I
go.
knew
That's Ray Taurasi.
I knew I'd get some good stories mentioning Ray's name because you got probably a million Ray stories.
Oh
Um,
God.
so with the Basiles, because
Yes.
a lot of people refer to you as the fourth Basile brother. Go through each of the brothers if you wouldn't mind and share like a memory of them that is special to you, because I
All
know you
right.
spent a lot of time with all of them.
Oh,
And a lot of people don't realize how important the Basiles have been to Healthmark's growth, to your growth,
oh,
to the industry's growth. I mean, they did
yeah.
win the Award of Honor last year at HSPA for this reason, because they have contributed so much to our industry. So if you wouldn't mind, just talk a little bit about the
Sure.
brothers and what they
Uh,
mean to you.
I, I I should go with Ralph, Mark, and Steve, but I'm gonna go in this order. Um, Mark Basile, I went on my first international trip with him, and it was amazing. And I got to see a brother who is thinking outside of the box, how he could, because it was an international meeting, how he interacted with other companies, trying to form partnerships, because they've had a lot of partnerships with companies over in Europe. Famos, Clinipac, was bought, Westfield, WePack, many other companies, but he understands the business. He understands the importance of partnership. He understands the importance of making a deal and how important his word is in the company's word. And I got to see him different than being in the office, and how he was able to think and put things together. And some people might call it mingling or smoozing, but it wasn't. There was sincerity in when he talked to people. And, what if, can you do this? How do we do, have you ever thought of coming to the US? And I saw a whole different on how he was trying to grow this international market, but also what he could bring to the US market to figure out how to do it. And then, then the brothers get back and figure out the plan or whatever. And I I enjoyed watching Mark do those things. And I saw it for the first time firsthand. Um, and I always thanked him for my first international trip. And I probably should have done more things, but I got him in my hotel, and, we did a walking tour and went out to eat. And he says, well, why didn't you do this, that? And it was my first experience. I didn't want to spend too much money or whatever. And he says, just relax, enjoy. And I'm always grateful for seeing that side of Mark Basile and how that played a part in helping the company grow and bringing in other partners to do things in the skill level. You've got to know how to do that. It just, it's hard for me to divide up Ralph and Steve because I've spent so much time traveling with them. They've probably said too much. And putting one first over the other, I've traveled both in cars and planes with them both, and they've treated me unbelievably well, nice, with respect, shared their knowledge. They both had a plan. Ralph's was to, besides many things, understand the standards and where Healthmark came about now before we were bought, how we were well respected by companies large and small for maybe being neutral like Switzerland, but doing the right thing, trying to make sure when we wrote the standards, no matter what other people said, it wasn't to make it for our products, make it where it's, if it has to be generic, I don't know if that's the right word, but what is the best thing for it? And then if that's the way the standard is, we'll work and do things and meet those things. The people he introduced me to taught me how to act. Just very thankful. I want to go back to Mark for a second, and I'm going to do this a little different. People don't know the three wives, Karen, which is Ralph's wife, Maura, which is Mark's wife, and Dolores, which is Steve's wife. All of them worked there at one time or another. And I want to put a shout out to Maura Basile. And you have to remember, Dolores and Maura were working while they were raising their kids real young, all this all this time and working like other people. And Maura was an editor for some magazines. So when Ralph and I started writing, I was a very poor writer, but Maura would take and edit these things. And what do you mean by this? I know that doesn't make sense. And she helped form our first articles, and she was behind the scenes, and Dolores doing the payroll and doing different things and making sure everybody got the penny they were supposed to get. And if something was wrong, it really worried her that what was a mistake, so she wouldn't do the detail, and they wanted things to be right. And then when Karen came along and we expanded our PPE and her insight to retailing and that, all their wives have contributed in different ways. And people don't know that. They were there working every day in the office, but they were doing other things. They knew the importance of articles and doing things right. And I want to give a shout out. Um, you know, uh, I can't tell you how many in services Steve and I and Ralph did together, but this is a story that stands out, and it's going to bring in who I think is the father of the flexible inspection scope, the borescope, Mr. Jahan Azizi, and that guy does not get enough praise in this industry for it. So here's the story. He's working at a large university hospital, and he's going to start writing this paper and inspecting things. And he gets a $200,000 pediatric scope and tower and all this, for this very small endoscope. And he asks us, along with another gentleman, do we want to come and help do tests? So we had our pro check, our channel check. He was going to use ATP. And we said, sure. Well, anybody who knows Jahan, if he says 6 o'clock, he's there at 5 o'clock, you know? Well, he told us to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he was there earlier. Ralph, Steve, and I think it was at least 3 to 4 Saturdays in a row, 5 o'clock in the morning, working without lunch or had a little bathroom break or water, 10, 12 hours in a decontam area, testing suctions, looking at them, writing them down. Ralph did one, I did one, he did that, doing the data. These guys were there. They were there to understand how our products worked, how other products who weren't ours worked, the importance of this stuff. So that would help them understand that's how involved they have been. And Ralph and I and Steve have done so many in services. Ralph and I have slept in a car in the parking garage at like 10 o'clock and had to go back at midnight, waiting to go in to do the midnight shift, and I'd be talking, and it worked so well with both of them that if I missed something, it just flowed. Well, this you want to do, and you want to do this, and you might want to think of this. And I miss that. I miss doing that. Is one of the things I really miss. But then sitting with them, talking with them, learning things, you know, um, uh, I don't know what else to say. Um, I don't know. You ask me, and I'll go through. My eyes are closed. Like 9,000 different things.
No, that's that's really great, and there was a great setup there by Adam. Those are stories that I think are so critical to the history and growth of this company. And you know, it's funny. Like I remember some of the things that stood out to me when I was checking, like, as this is back when I was a customer of Healthmark, right? I was looking at some of the educational videos and things like that, and like there were some that you shared with me that were like literally probably taken on a cell phone during an in-service in a department, and some of them were like Steve Basile was there and trying to
Yeah.
help customers troubleshoot issues with their washers and things like that. And the knowledge and experience that these guys have, it's no mistake that the company was as successful as it was and why it was coveted by other companies as one to acquire. And you and the brothers, and I love that you brought in the wives because so often they don't get the credit they deserve for the success of either their husband or the company or whoever it is they're supporting, and that is a very important part is with a family business that everybody is pitching in. And I feel like I even remember you telling me stories of some of the younger
Yeah.
Basiles coming in and doing
Yeah.
various things around the office, and that were also very important.
Stuffed
But they,
envelopes.
yeah, stuff in envelopes. What were the envelopes?
Well, Healthmark was known for their mail marketing. But before
Yeah.
I do that, I want to tell you one more story about Steve. I think you both heard it, and I want other people, I want this on record. Um, Healthmark has always believed in inputs and quality process. As they began to sell the Tosi in Sonacheck, there were failures happening. And it was always the washer companies. And now to hear what they're saying, I got to watch what I say still because I'm an employee. Um, oh, don't use this test, blah, 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 blah. Well, since it was failing, we had to come up and help them solve the issue. And the only way you do that is to collect and understand data. Now, I'm going to say collectively, Steve, Ralph, and Mark, I was not part of it. They came up with their quality check sheet that said they looked at the IFUs of the company and says, what are you supposed to do daily? You're supposed to check the spinner arms. You do this, you do that. Steve Basile, I know it was at least 3 months. Every Monday morning, and thank you, Richard Schul. Thank you very much, Richard Schul. Steve drove from Detroit to the Cleveland Clinic, and I think he tested anywhere from 10 to 17 washers every morning with Tosis, figured out what was wrong, started to make the sheet. They made that sheet and knew if you had poor water quality, it could be an issue, or if the temperature was too high in the pre-wash, blah, blah, blah. If the spray arms were, why did it fail on the top one and not the bottom two? Well, the top one had clogged, but maybe one it gets by, but if they had two, you had to check these things before, and they put that sheet and then they kept modifying it. That's how you help your customer use your product correctly. Now, we can give you suggestions where you have to start looking, and that's what we did. And then our success continued. Oh, yeah, you do. Well, okay. Have you read the? Oh, yeah, I read the. Did you read the manufacturer? Yeah. No. Well, in there, you're supposed to daily do this. How you do? Oh, you don't. Well, you need to check. You need to check these. Blah blah blah. You guys all know. You've worked in a hospital, and so it became a reinforcement. And trying to get people to do something when there is no standard is unbelievable. But when you talk about quality and you talk about putting in quality processes and people get to understand, if you understand that, you can start working out. And it's not the person. We have to train the person. You got to do this. And now all of a sudden it's passing and things got better. And that's what it was about. So I wanted to tell that story. And now, because of my adult ADD, what did I jump away from, Kevin?
I was just asking you about the younger Basiles and
Ooh.
some of the roles, even not just
Oh
the
yeah.
Basiles, but you've had your son in there working, right?
Oh my
And
boy. Oh,
yeah,
oh, Nick used to drill the holes. Him and type.
yeah,
Uh, Peter, Peter worked there, and they had a little term, "Don't pull a Peter," where you sort of work a little slower every once in a while. Uh, excuse me. Bobby's kids started working there during the summer of year. They always could find jobs for kids to work. Dots on locks, so many different things. But I was very blessed that both my boys have been able to work there. Nick actually worked at the old 9 Mile, so he worked at both, which was really, really great. But Lily and Ashton would come in, and they used to know for sending out samples and stuff. And, they stuff the stuff, seal it, and somebody mail it out. And Dan and Pete came while they were in college and did projects and worked in between. And yeah, it was there's always family members from different employees. They're doing jobs that they could help do, which was great. Um, it's been a family affair all along. You know, it's really cool. I've always thought it was cool.
yeah, absolutely. And one thing too, I wanted to touch on real quick because we are at least getting closer to our time.
This
But
is like Joe Rogan.
yeah,
Hey, we're talking hours. I hope people really listen to this.
well, I hope so, and I think it is. I think it is good to do some long form podcasts, especially with somebody like yourself, and there'll be
Well,
others too. This isn't going to be the only ones, but I think it is really important that we explore careers and stories a little bit deeper to understand some of the history and also where our industry should maybe go in the future. But one of the things that I thought was interesting about you specifically that maybe a lot of people today aren't even really aware of is that you had sort of um, the tip of the spear in terms of like having a dedicated educational website for sterile processing. And I don't think people out there today maybe even know that, but you had a website called cpdguy.com, right? Is that,
well, yeah,
am I,
okay. So
do I have it
I need
right?
the record. I want the record to be straight here.
Yeah, let's hear
All
it.
right. Dave Wise, MSH CSP. It's 1993, 94. To my knowledge, he put up one of the first websites. I came up within a couple weeks later, and it was smk.rustnet, and it was called the CS Forum. And I did that while I was still working in a hospital. And then Missouri came online, and I was blessed enough to work with Isham with, I think it was Stan Burke or Stan, help in the development of some of their beginning web page. But I found some of my old stuff, and this was before I came to Healthmark. I had ask a question on my CS forum, and anybody could put in a question, and that question went out to like 20 different people. It went to Nancy Chobin, Brian Broder, Marion, a lot of my Michigan MSH CSP people, Ray Taurasi, all these different people who then could answer your question, and hopefully you would get it. And then later on, this was before Isham came up with their talk section. Karen, I always get her name wrong, N.A. Nazar. How do you say it, Adam? Out in
Karen Noss, yeah,
Nos.
that's how I say it.
I just deleted today. My wife couldn't believe it. 32,000 emails I am retiring. They're gone.
It's shocking. Shocking.
They're gone. My wife was so happy. 32, a little over 32,000 emails today. I
Wow.
had kept them back through the 90s. They're
I
gone.
know.
And in
Wow.
there was Karen had asked Ralph and I to come up with a talk thing like that, similar. And we started it, and it was used a little bit, but then Isham and other people started coming up with them. There was a guy out in the state of Washington who did one for nurses, which was really good. And I forget his name. And so these were like some of the first blogs. But I want to go back to Dave Wise, and this gets to Ray Taurasi. And this is with my first wife, Ann. And so this is in the late 90s. We would get on AOL Instant Messenger at 11 and 12 o'clock at night with other CS professionals. And there's a guy, Dan Mayworm, he's still alive, who's people really got to research this guy. He's a wonderful guy. We would be on an hour or two on AOL Instant Messenger asking each other questions. How are you doing this? What are you solving this? Are you going to this meeting? And then the next thing I know, it'd be like 12:30. And I become my wife, you're always doing something. But, it used to be, there's a lot of people out there, and that's why I want to give a big shout out to Hank. Hank has been at the right time. He's doing a great job, and other people are falling behind it. Times and things change, and we have to adapt and learn how to do it. And I really want to commend Hank, where started out the way he did, and now it's a business and so on. But he has helped transform the industry. And I think people should be thankful, and other people we've done things similar and see the need, and he helped push that ball. But there's a lot of us, it wasn't popular, but there were people out there doing it. And I think MSHCSP still puts on their history. I think they say they were the first one, and I was just the years might be wrong, 93, 94, 95, something like that. But I didn't get mine up in time, but it was a CS forum, and my boys used to fix it for me. And then my son had his college roommate who ended up working at Microsoft. He redid it for me, and then Peter did it, and that's coming down. It's all coming down. And anyways, what was the question again?
So I was asking about the CPD guy
Oh,
website and
yeah.
how did that come
Oh,
about and
I wanted people to get information. So here's one of the reasons I will. The big thing in the 90s was talc sterilization and dry heat sterilization. And can you do it? They wanted sterile processing to do it. People were doing it wrong. There was articles, you don't do it, causes infections, adhesion, you have to have a dry heat sterilizer. So found some articles, start putting it out there. So I started putting it on a website, and then links to go different places. It's where you could go to get information. That's all it was. It was information I found that I thought other people would find helpful. And that's all it was. It was just where I would put information I thought was helpful to the profession. That's all it was. An information page.
It's great and ahead of its time because I don't think there
Yep.
was a lot of information at that point, and there wasn't a great way to get it to people. So
Mhm.
it kind of
Yeah.
brings me to the one. I know we're running out of time. The last question that I wanted to ask you, Steve, was in your career, in all the things you've seen, all the changes that have happened in the industry, what are you most proud of in your career? What is the thing that you think is your biggest contribution?
Um, Learning when I actually learned the importance of it's not about trying to reach every person in the audience. It's giving people knowledge that they can use. And the goal is I got to reach at least one. And if I could reach one, I did my job, because that one will spread it. And it was being sincere. I think people believe I was sincere and coming from the heart. And it goes back to the story I told, and I've told it a few more times. And I didn't mean for it to happen the way it did at the last ISHM meeting, the large meeting I talked to, and afterwards people came up to me, and the goal wasn't them to come think I'm some really good guy or or whatever, but it's a story I talk about with Anne, my first wife, and her battle with trying to swallow. And the speech therapist from Michigan went to Ohio, paid her own way, went down there and learned something. And the last couple of years, at least 10 times a year, my wife would be discharged from the hospital, and we get a new nurse, occupational physical therapist, aide, I don't know, 8, 9 people. What do you want to do, Ann? I want to be able to drink a cup of coffee. She couldn't. She did with me, but I broke the rules, had a peg tube. And this one occupational therapist says, I attended a meeting, blah, blah, blah. And there's a study going on here in Detroit. And my wife got to participate, and she had the vital stems and learned to do stuff. And she got to drink, have a little tapioca and legally some coffee before she died. Unfortunately, the study didn't get finished because she was a key subject and they needed some x-rays and other stuff, so they couldn't publish it the way they wanted. But when I learned that changed. It's you want everybody to learn something, but that person learned one thing, and she changed my wife's life. And every speaker has something to share, and hopefully, and you guys know it, we're up there, and the people who have never spoke, you get people on their phones, but you know when somebody's got an idea of something you said, you see it in their face, and man, you cannot beat that feeling. There, you go, you know what? They're going to take something and they're going to mold it their own way, and they're going to make a difference somewhere else. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, I love that. I believe that you've done that many, many times over the course of your career. I still remember before we wrap up here, I still remember I actually had not heard you speak until I was an employee of Healthmark, and I went on a first trip. I think it might have been to
Beaumont,
yeah, Beaumont was.
the education
Yep,
center.
yep.
I remember it,
That's
Kevin.
right. Yep. And but I got the chance to hear you speak, and it was funny because so many of the things that you're supposed to do when you present, that you learn how to do, whether it's, your slide setup and all that stuff, you really didn't do all of that stuff. But what you did was you challenged the people in the crowd and you engaged the people in the crowd. And I do believe that probably out of all of us speakers, you probably have the least amount of people sleeping or sitting on their phone for that reason. But
That's nice
uh,
of you to
but I
say.
can tell you, just as somebody who has listened to you speak, the passion does come through. It does make you think. It does make you wonder, how can I improve my practice? And I can't help but believe that you've made a tremendous impact in this industry after all of the years of traveling to all these different nooks and crannies around the country and even around the globe in some circumstances. I can't even imagine the level of impact that you've had, and hopefully, uh, I'll have a fraction of that at the end of my
Oh,
career.
well. Kevin, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you. You have made a difference, both of you. Keep believing in yourself. You both have the skills, and we each find our own way to present and make it unique. And I thank you for wanting to take this time, both of you. That's very nice of you, and hope we met your goals today. And Kevin, you're local. We'll be seeing you more. And Adam, I mean this, whenever you're in town. If I'm in town, I'd love to have you over for a pop or something. And it has been my pleasure, and I've learned from both of you a lot of things. And that's the other thing. You can't stop learning, and we learn every day, and everybody has something to share, and you have to be open to it. Nobody knows everything. Nobody. So, Adam, what do you say? We wrap it up?
I think we're done. But Steve, thank you for everything. I will give personal goodbyes to you at some point in the future. But for on behalf of the industry, we just thank you for everything that you've contributed, because the industry is better from having you in it. I mean, everything you've contributed, not just going up and speaking, but going into departments, talking to people, spreading your passion and knowledge has lifted this industry up. And it's very rare that somebody can have that level of impact in their profession, in their career. And it's something I think Kevin and I would agree that like we aspire to. We want to have that kind of impact where we help this industry get better. But you have actually done and laid that groundwork for all of us. And so I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done.
You're welcome, my friend. All right, guys, have a happy new year. We'll be in touch. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
That
Okay.
sounds
Thank you,
good. I'd
Steve.
like that.